Have a listen to this now.
Simon Young, the Simon Young Radio Show on 2FM, Ireland's number one.
Simon Young, good morning.
Good morning, John. How are you?
And,
it's a long time since I've heard that.
Yes, but listeners over the years to 2FM will know you well. Others will know you from your friendly face on The Den on RTE2 television. And then there was your other role, which has already prompted a text. Will you ask Simon, will you ever go back to being Jimmy Plays, John?
Oh, God.
That was your alter ego, the man you created.
Well, I think it's a kind of the monster I created, you know.
Just remind us of who Jimmy was for those.
Jimmy, well, Jimmy came about. I don't know exactly how he came about. He was just, he just came out of me one day. We were doing some show, doing a show on, doing a little chat with Ian in the studio, and I was messing with him on talkback. You know, I always had this idea for a character who would be, with respect to everybody outside the glass window, who would be the producer, you know, but who would come on air. Right. And the actual listeners could hear the talk back, you know.
Sure.
And that's still there for the taking. Maybe I shouldn't have given that one away. But so Jimmy came about, and it just kind of developed, and it was just once a week, and then suddenly it became a regular feature. It became, you know, the hotspot in the morning at 8:10, and about 3 times a week, and then 5 days a week. And that was grand. And the recording we did on one morning went out the following morning at 7:10. But we were waking up to becoming a 24/7 country at that stage. So people started phoning and saying, touch of deja vu there this morning. So we had to start doing that a whole lot. So over the, I don't, we made
How long was he?
He was around for years. Yeah. I know that Ian has, I think, most of our recordings somewhere. He has them stashed somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And Jimmy had a wife as well. His famous catchphrase is "Get out of that garden."
Yeah. That was God. That's such a strange one. I mean, it's something I could never get away from. I was going through kind of. I had 2 catchphrases. One was "Get out of that garden," which was the whole Jimmy thing, and that actually came about. I was actually in my my little home studio that we all have as disc jockeys, and I was doing a call with Ian on 2FM in the morning, and I always kind of had a beginning and an end, or a beginning and a middle, and we would just, you know, do it on the fly then, as it were. So I was sitting there in my bedroom. I was doing the call, and I had my little girl on my lap, and I was trying to make this call, and suddenly the postman, Joe, was coming up the driveway, and I was really he had these big packages of 12-inch records and albums from the record companies, and I was just stuck for something to say, and I just didn't know, and I just banged on the window, "Get out of that garden!" And he looked up at me, and he was still confused about the whole thing. I still don't think poor old Joe knows that he was actually the instigator of the whole thing. So it just caught on then.
And Jimmy had a wife then for a while.
Jimmy had Vera, and he had his good friend Morris and Mr. Bulger, and we brought in lots of different characters into it and that kind of thing.
And that ran in parallel, of course, with your career then as a DJ, Simon Young.
Yes, I was lucky enough to get into RTE many years ago, John, and I was chuffed to get into it. I mean, I was a young guy from Finglas, just grew up did my first gig, I think, when I was about 15 or 16, mobile disco, and my mom had bought me a twin deck. She knew I was kind of into radio. I mean, at the age of kind of 15, a lot of the guys were kind of chasing girls and squeezing their pimples and all that kind of stuff, and I was happy enough listening to the radio and that kind of thing, you know, so it was basically an interest, a hobby that turned into a terrific career, you know, which I enjoyed every single moment of it, you know. And it was fantastic to be actually in here in RTE because I'd worked on all the pirate radio stations, Big D and ARD and different stations like that. And I was there more or less from exactly from the beginning of pirate radio in Ireland, but fairly close to it,
Yeah.
you know. So there's a couple of older guys out there than me, you know.
Right,
They
yeah,
were
but
there
you were
before
through it
me.
all. So you went from the pirate days to the, you know, the 2FM days, and
And then TV
yeah,
beckoned as well with
on the
the
Den.
mad years of the Den, and that was crazy stuff on the Den. What kind of went on underneath the desk? If you were looking at the Den, you'd see the desk, you'd see all the mad stuff. You'd see Zuppy, Zig and Zag, Socky, the whole gang. But it was what went on underneath that desk. It's the stuff that we can't talk about.
Yeah, come on, you can talk about it now.
It was just mad stuff. I mean, like getting your laces tied together and people tickling your leg and you know, and further up your leg and all this kind of stuff while you're trying to keep a straight face and being pinched and all that
And
kind
I
of
believe
stuff.
you were regularly in convulsions, probably as a result of some of those antics. But
Well, the very first time I met Dustin, I was, because they didn't tell me about this guy, you know. So I just turned up to do my regular pop spot on it, suddenly this thing appeared, you know, and it was like something out of Alien, you know. And I saw the big beak on him, and I think that piece went down. I'm not sure. Somebody must have it somewhere, John.
Yes.
You know, but I was told by somebody that it went down for about 16 or 17 minutes or something. I just couldn't stop. Just really and truly got the giggles, and they left me on. They wouldn't cut the camera. We only had one camera then in the studio. We'd no auto cue, we'd nothing at all, no scripts to stick to or anything like that, which was great, you know. So we could mention lots of things and get loads of free stuff and everything, you know. It was really fun. It was really fun.
so that there were great days.
There were happy
Yeah.
days, John. I was here in 2FM. I did various programs from the dance show at the weekends. I did Poporama just down the corridor here in Studio 2. And they were great days. Ryan Tuberty was just our 12-year-old book reviewer. Yeah, he was the little whippersnapper, and he was coming in, and he was very good at what he did. And his younger brother actually did Ryan was our book reviewer, and his younger brother reviewed books for younger children. And they were great guys, really super, you know, really, really good. And they were very happy days. I was doing that. I was doing lots of other stuff up in the office, and
So you were a happy man, and things.
I was a happy man.
Things going well in your career, in your personal life as well.
And in my personal life, everything was great. Myself and Phil, we had two beautiful, gorgeous children. We were blessed with them. I have a boy and a girl, and things couldn't have been better, you know. And I was very much a working disc jockey, in the sense that I had to travel an awful lot around the country. You know, I'd have my gig boxes, and I'd have a roadie and all that kind of stuff. So I was very, very busy, you know, all around the country, you know. And
So what happened, Simon, and when did things begin to unravel?
where things started to go, let's say, a little bit astray, John, I'd been into, I think maybe or naughty 22 years or so. Happiest days of my life, the biggest chunk of my life, really, working life, you know, simple as that. And for those people who have read the interview that I did with Jackie Hayden in Hot Press, yeah. It was just a very strange period for me, John, and we all get strange periods, you know, in our lives. And
What specifically? What were the symptoms?
well, basically, thing is just my dad had died in 1999, April 1999, and he'd had a kind of very long, slow passing, you know. And I was very close to the man. He was a terrific man, you know. He was a typewriter mechanic by trade. He worked for Underwood, and I think that's why we were always interested in writing and that kind of stuff, scripting. And there was always a typewriter in the house, you know. Just like if your dad worked in Jacobs, there was always biscuits in the house. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. And he died, and it was. Actually, the day he died, I was actually doing a play in the Olympia at the time. I was touring with Brendan O'Carroll's The Course. and I was playing Dermo, the second lead, and I still went on that night in the theatre, you know, which was kind of a bit strange, but it took me away, I think, from the reality. I think that may have been a turning point where I began to try and escape from the reality of it, you know. And I think from then it slowly, it must have been festering, let's say. That's what I'd say. It was festering. So approximately a year and a half after that, I was starting just to feel a little bit glum with myself, and I just take a drop of water, John.
Sure.
I brought my own just in case the cutbacks were really
no, we
bad.
can still stretch to
That's all right.
to a bit of still water, don't worry.
Oh, well, I do my bit. But,
thank you.
So, yes, I was at home. I was in my apartment, and I was writing, just sitting there on my couch. I was writing up some scripts for a radio show I was doing at the time, and all of a sudden, I'd heard of people having, you know, feelings of, a wave coming over them and that kind of thing. And it never kind of, because I'd never been there, that didn't make sense to me, if you understand. It's as simple as that, John, you know. And a lot of stuff just came into my head all at once, you know, all at once.
Like what?
Like my father's passing. My marriage hadn't been going too well, unfortunately. You know, that happens in life, and I was obviously terribly sorry that it was going that way, because it's not the way I envisaged my marriage. It's not the way I wanted things to be. I had two beautiful children. You know, I was still doing the school runs. I was still making them pizza at home and all that kind of stuff. But they'd be with me for some time during the week, and then they'd be with Mom. So, and this happens, you know, I know a lot of people will be able to identify with this, because it is part of modern life, alas, you know, but it is. And everything just seemed to happen to me at once, John. And
So
I got all shaky.
Was it physical? Yeah,
yeah, there was yes, there was. I've often been asked, was there a physical? And there was a physical situation. And it's very standard, you know, from what I've heard. On my hands, the palms of my hands became very sweaty. My forehead. I felt a little bit shivery and then shaky and then very nervy and I'd say scared, you know, scared in a big way, and didn't know what I was scared of, but just felt scared. And I think it was that behind it all was that fear of the unknown that's what was making me scared, because I didn't know. I'd never had a feeling like this, you know, before. I've had many feelings in my life, but I certainly hadn't had this feeling
what did you
before.
do, Simon, when you were going through this?
Well, I was very panicky, let's say, and I was getting little shortages of breath. And I managed to phone my sister, who in turn phoned the doctor, got to the docs. She gave me something to relax me, and I kind of, after that, it's all a bit of a blur and a bit of a haze. But I remember I ended up in hospital, and it's as simple as that. Where I remained for, I think it was maybe 7 weeks or so.
And what did the doctor say was wrong?
Obviously, there was a lot of discussion with the doctor and his team about what had happened, and the words DRS came up, and I was familiar with these words. I would have read about them, you know, delayed reaction syndrome, you know, where you're having a reaction to something that has happened to you before, but it's been delayed, you know. Maybe you're suppressing it, you know, you're trying to hold it down in some way, either by acting out or because you don't want to go there, you know, you just kind of don't want to go there, John. So the doctor, basically, a very kind man, a very gentle man, and he said that, in his opinion, it was more than likely reactive depression. So I stayed in hospital for possibly 7 weeks. I came out. I was only out for a week, and I just felt I needed to go back in again. So, and that was to be the start of a lot of in and out of hospital for me.
What did this mean? What did this mean for your day job here?
Well, for my day job here in RTE, and there's a lot of curiosity about this. I've been asked about it many times, so it's a good opportunity for me to clear the air for myself, being on the show this morning, John, and to say that like RTE did not leave me. I left RTE. It's as simple as that. John Clark was head of 2FM at the time, an old friend of mine, and a good friend too. And I'd had little chats with John, in the office, and we discussed a few things. I just often breezed into his office, I say, I'm not feeling too good today, John, or he kind of noticed it in me because I was a
At this stage, had you separated from your wife? Were you living alone?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was at that particular point. We hadn't officially separated, and still haven't. That's the Irish for you to a degree, And
But you were under the weather. You weren't yourself. And
no,
obviously
I
it manifested
wasn't.
itself with this attack, and so.
Yeah, as you say, I wasn't myself. I know myself that up in the office area, where above where we are at the moment, in the open plan office, it was great fun. They were really happy days here in the centre. We had great crack with all the crew up there. And I'm going to have to pop up and see them after the show and say hello and run amok.
Yeah.
And
but in other words, it was coming.
It was on the way.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was on the way.
So did you go in and just say, based on your recent history of ill health and it being
yes, I did.
That you decided to call it a day?
Yes, I did it eventually over the phone with John.
And we're talking what year?
This was 2002.
Okay.
2002, I think. Around it was late November, as far as I recall, third week in November, I think, in 2002. I'm sure somebody will put me up on that, but it was approximately that time.
And as you continued to suffer from the illness that had been diagnosed by the doctor, you found yourself in some fairly serious situations. At one stage, your weight ballooned seriously.
Indeed,
out of control, and at one stage there were even fears whether you'd actually live to see another day. Tell us about them.
There was, John, and it feels slightly. I'm by no means here this morning in a poor me situation, whatsoever. But I did find myself, and I can only tell the truth about it, that I developed, I should say, this tendency to retain fluid for some reason or other, and the fluid kept building up inside me. Quite common, we say, in ladies, if they're expecting a baby, that build-up of fluid in your legs, which can happen. And that's what was happening. So it got very bad when I was in hospital at one stage, and they...
What weight were you at?
I was just over 27 stone, yeah. I was like a sumo wrestler, And it was very uncomfortable, and it didn't feel healthy, to me whatsoever.
You must have been just
under a lot of strain and stress. My body would have been under strain. So just one day, it just got so bad, I felt very weak. They brought me into the medical room on the ward straight away, and I remember hearing the doctor talking about these needles that had to go in. They're 8-inch needles that go in on each side of you. It's not an actual operation. It's a draining. It's a plumbing job. As it were. And at that stage, I felt that I was wired by a plumber. The way I was feeling. But so they put these inside me, and I remember I remember hearing the doctor saying blood pressure very low and all this kind of stuff, and I could hear. The nurse, I remember the sister very, very well. She was a lovely woman, and I could hear her crying. My mum was there, my brother was there, my sister was there, the family were called. And because I subsequently learned about another illness that I suffered with, and which is known as sleep paralysis, which I'll explain to you about in a moment, John, if we have time. I went into an attack of this sleep paralysis. So although, I was aware of what was going on in the room, I just couldn't move. I couldn't react. I couldn't move. I couldn't flinch any part of my body. So I could hear the doctor saying blood pressure low, all this kind of stuff going on. It was really kind of ER stuff, and I obviously passed out. And just before I passed out, I could hear a gentle voice saying prayer, and bless. I could hear words blessing, and this and that was coming in and out of it, and that was when they were very concerned and had obviously called for the priest, who subsequently became a very good friend of mine. He's a terrible nice chap, and it's funny the way it goes around, and I've met him on several occasions since, But so that was that, and another occasion I was in a different hospital and I took a seizure, and I can remember just feeling a bit jerky and jumpy and that, and that's what peripheral neuropathy, that's the illness I suffer with, peripheral neuropathy, which is an attack on the outer nervous system, your nerve endings, and that simply manifested itself in like a tingling in my toes, like pins and needles in my toes, and eventually it worked its way up through my legs and onto the right-hand side of my body, where at times my hand will kind of go very much asleep and that kind of thing, So I'm on medication for that, which is great. It's horse medication, it really is. But it works, and that's the great thing, I kind of don't like hearing people complaining that they have to take a tablet for this or a tablet for that. I just think, God, I'm so lucky that some people actually develop this, because for anybody out there who does suffer with peripheral neuropathy, they'll know the spasms that it can bring.
And you take aspirin, is it?
Well, for neuropathy, you'd be on a drug called Neurontin or Lyrica. Lyrica is mainly used in America. Over here, it's normally Neurontin. And I'd be on a fairly heavy dosage of that per day. And aspirin for transient asthmatic attacks, which are like mini strokes that I was taking, and they're mini strokes in my brain.
Simon, how long? I mean, I'm looking at you now, and you're hale and hearty, and
you can only see me from the waist up.
Yeah. But how long did this? Did this?
Oh gosh,
this continue for where
I was in and out.
People wondered, probably your loved ones and friends wondered whether you'd be making it through this. I mean,
they did. Yeah, I wondered myself, and I had a lot of sleepless, kind of lonely nights over it and tearful nights over it, John, and it got quite serious because I was suffering with so many things, and I don't want to feel like there are people. I always said it in hospital. Whenever I was in hospital, you've only got to turn a corner in a hospital, and you'll always see somebody that's worse than you. You will, unfortunately, you will always see somebody that's worse than you, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing for me. It's not a good thing for the person who's worse than you. But it's
when were the first, we say, literally the green shoots of recovery? When did you feel that you were getting to grips with it? And I know you say you're still on medication, but when did you get a sense? And where did you go?
The world is on medication, John. From sugar to well, you know what I mean. Sugar is as big a commodity as gold these days.
Yeah. But when did you begin to emerge from it and realise that despite what you'd been through and some dark thoughts on your own behalf, that that you could tackle this and conquer it?
Sure. Okay. Well, I had to speak with people, which is a good thing if you feel like that. If you're feeling down or depressed or whatever. And a lot of people will find themselves in that situation the way the recession is at the moment, you know. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And I was thinking all along that it was something to be ashamed of, you know. I was ashamed of it. And now, you know, you've got to let that I had to let that guilt feeling go and talk to people, you know, who'd been there, who'd gone through it, you know, and not to listen to people who'll just come up and say, snap out of it, or, you know, get a grip on yourself, or, you know, whatever. Come on, pull yourself together. Because you're just not in a situation where anything is interesting, and you're isolating. I isolated myself for a couple of years, and I drank more than I should have, which didn't help. It never does. And you know, I was told by a very wise old person, lady once, that, you know, no matter what you do, people turn to different things to try and help them. But, you know, we can't take the pain out of life, you know. We can't, not by that means, you know. So
how long did it last then?
I was in and out of hospital. Basically, out of the last 9 years, I've been in. I spent about 4.5 years of that time in hospital.
In and out, getting treatment.
In hospital for that. That's about the total amount of time. Yeah.
And just because of your symptoms, because of attacks that you
my
suffered?
peripheral neuropathy, my TIAs. Transient asthmatic attacks, my sleep paralysis, which I was diagnosed with in the Matter sleep analysis unit, and it's a very unique illness insofar as it's more common in Far Eastern countries, but it's obviously when I read more about it, it's a fear-based illness, and it's known as sleep paralysis. You're actually awake. You're aware of what's around you. You can hear, but you just can't move your body. You're rigid. You know, it's as simple as that. You know.
Is it all anxiety based, Simon? Because you were
Yes.
talking earlier about
anxiety,
grieving for your father's death, and then the breakup of your marriage. Is that the
it
source? Is that what
You're-
is that root?
You're dead right there, John. It is. It's anxiety because it's you're in a place where you haven't been before. You know, it's like being dropped into the Amazon. If you know, it's you know, I don't know, grenades or bombs going off all around you. You know, it wasn't a nice place to be.
Are you out of that place now? Have you put all of this behind you, and have you got your head around your life?
I've got my head around. I've got my head around things, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't feel in a position to be able to talk to you about it, John. You know, which is great to be able to talk about it, because so many people, you know, will, I suppose. They'll bottle it up, you know, they'll turn to this, they'll turn to that. They'll more or less do, you know, the complete opposite to what you're supposed to do.
So
because you know, because you don't know. You
so
know.
what did you do? What has helped you?
I spoke with people. Yeah, I took a break. I went down the country for about 9 months, and kind of got back to nature and did a personal.
Whereabouts?
Retreat, I suppose. I won't say, John, but
solitude. Was it solitude?
Yes, there was a lot of solitude there, but there was a lot of other people there as well. But it was a kind of a back to nature and back to living in the now. You know, we spend our lives, you know, living in the past, or else living in the future. We're talking about what happened last night, or last week, or else what are you doing next week? What are you up to tomorrow night? You know, what about right now? You know, what about right now? And I discovered that, you know, you've got to have a breakthrough, or you've got to have a breakdown before you can have a breakthrough. So I think, you know, when I heard words like that, and that you can't take the pain out of life, by any other means than by facing your fears. And if we're all to throw our problems into a pile, as they say, on the floor, you'd soon grab your own back. You
would.
You sure would.
You would indeed. And so it's obviously it's a constant battle with you. You can't make presumptions about how you're going to feel tomorrow or what.
I don't think
anybody
really can. People, I think, can put a face on about it, and people talk about a positive mental attitude, but that's only an attitude. It's like a feeling is only a feeling. Any feeling can pop into anybody's head at any time, whether that be something to do with breaking the law, or whether it may be lust, or maybe it may be this or that. But it's whether you act on the feelings, or
And I should say, Simon, at this stage, lots and lots of texts coming in. People delighted to hear you back on the radio. I was a great fan of Simon's on the weekend show. I also worked in the Harp Bar when Simon was resident DJ on Sunday and Mondays. That's from Pat in Selbridge. Tim in Wicklow says, it's great to hear Simon on the radio again. Hope he does acting again. Was fortunate to work with him on Sparrow's Trap and
the movie.
And he is the most naturally funny guy ever. Neil says, I still miss Jimmy. And Bernard from Big D says, welcome back, Simon. We missed you. And lots of other texts wishing you well. One here says, he's very brave in telling his story, and there are so many people out there who can identify with it. Mental health is the greatest unspoken taboo in our society, and it's only through being honest about our experience of it that we can change that. And another listener says, I'm transfixed to the radio. I've come through depression, and to fight that along with everything else is something else. I wish Simon every happiness for his future, and the solution is keep talking. So Simon, the future, tell us about the future now. What's the plan?
The future is that, we just spoke briefly, John, just for a moment before I popped into the studio, because the traffic was quite busy this morning coming across in the cab. But I worked on. I had this idea for a children's book. It was festering with me for a while, so I eventually got that to bed. Anyway, and that's
when will that be published?
I think, and I hope next year. We're a bit late for the Christmas market, because it's a kind of Christmas based book. It's set in the future and deals with. There's been a lot of changes on the planet, and it's very eco-friendly. It's an awareness book about our planet. That we're with all the new. Technology, etc. About we're the first, in a sense, the first generation that are dealing with recycling and all that kind of stuff.
And it'll be published shortly.
So well, please God,
Okay.
It
well,
will
listen,
be published. Yeah.
Simon, as I said, lots of good wishes, lots of people delighted to hear you. That distinctive voice on RTE again. Thanks,
Okay.
and on their behalf, thanks for all the pleasure.
Well, thank you to everybody who did. Text in or call in, John. I'm very appreciative of that, and it's humbling to think that people